What's going on, Wellness Warriors? Welcome back. I'm gonna do that again. What's going on, Wellness Warriors? Welcome back to the MME YouTube channel. We're here to help you develop a healthy mind, to keep your body aligned. My name is Tyler Egan, and I will be your wellness mentor and educator for today's video. And in today's video, we're gonna be talking about the 3 mental barriers blocking our spiritual growth on this healing and awakening journey. And can I just say this for a moment? Before we take a deep dive into the video and the content that I want to share with you all today, I have recorded this video, or attempted to record this video, probably 24 times. And ironically enough, as I keep sharing the information, I keep finding myself facing the same blocks with each fucking recording that I attempt. And it is so fascinating and really ironic. But anyway, we're gonna hydrate first. Cheers. Let's talk about these 3 mental blocks that I keep coming up against as I film this video. The first one is attachment. Attachment we'll define as an emotional or an energetic bond that we form to people or relationships, to outcomes or specific goals, desires that we may have, or to our own identities, values, and our belief systems. Now, the latter portion there, identities, values, and beliefs, we created a video on that, taking a deep dive into those 3 things and the human psyche. There will be a link in the description down below if you want to take a deeper dive into that after watching this video, because it will be very helpful in using this information to identify these mental barriers we are discussing in today's video. Okay, so attachment, emotional or energetic bonds that we form with people, relationships, outcomes, goals, desires, identities, values, or beliefs. And I'm gonna add another thing in here. Maybe it's an unconscious attachment to an old story, an unconscious attachment to some traumatic story from your past, or an energy or an emotion that you haven't had the opportunity to fully move through yet. These attachments can take the form in our lives by clinging on to these stories, clinging on to these identities, clinging on to the values, the beliefs, clinging on to that relationship. So you just can't let the person go. You can't end the relationship. You can't end the friendship. You know it's hurting you, but you can't do it. Clinging on a job. Right? Like, you know the job's toxic, you know it's not helping you know you can do better, you deserve better, but you can't let it go. And clinging on to old beliefs or value systems, like in Catholicism, how they preach that sex is inherently something you should be ashamed of, which is fascinating. Topic for a different day, I'm gonna distract myself. And we hold on to that unconsciously, so we carry around this level of sexual shame, this attachment to sexual shame within us. We cling onto it. There's an inability to release, surrender, or let go of these things, right? If we can't identify these attachments and they continue to cling on and hold on, and they block our spiritual growth, this leads to a resistance, a rejection, a better word, a rejection of the now, and an inability to find that level of inner peace, or what people will refer to as enlightenment, right? When I talk about a rejection of the now, this present moment, what I mean, to take a deeper dive into this and how it relates to what we're talking about here, a rejection of maybe energies or emotions that you or the universe is attempting to heal through you right now, right? Because in this moment, this now moment, this ever-present moment is the only place that we can ever heal. We can feel heal. It's the only place that we can move forward and surrender. And if we keep attaching to identities, values, beliefs, relationships, jobs, any of these things, we are attaching ourselves to something that happened in the past, pulling us out of this moment and essentially rejecting it and disrupting our ability to find that level of peace. So these attachments, just a couple of quick examples, can be an attachment to your self-worth, right? Maybe you had a job and an identity within that job. You were a manager who always had to hold people's hands and tell them what to do. And you have an identity around that, and you keep clinging on to it, right? And you have formed this attachment around that identity, and you take it with you wherever you go. Or better yet, maybe you can't even let that go. You're struggling to. This can take the form of an attachment to beliefs. I mentioned something about Catholicism earlier and some of the teachings of that, right? Maybe there are unconscious beliefs within you that are causing you to keep acting in unconscious patterns that might be not in alignment with where you want to go. Or maybe they are patterns of self-sabotage. These attachments can take the form of an attachment to a goal or an outcome. So for example, as my time as a personal trainer, I helped a lot of people with weight loss, and people would form an attachment to that goal of I need to lose 20, 30 pounds. Now, in that, when you have that attachment to the weight loss goal, well, essentially what you're saying is, I will not be whole, I won't be complete, I won't be healthy, I won't be loved until I lose that weight. And so you're taking the real goal behind it, the real objective, if you will, behind it, the feeling whole and complete, the feeling healthy and vibrant, and you're placing it on the outcome. And that is stifling us from actually evolving and harnessing the energy of feeling whole right now, feeling complete right now, feeling healthy right now, or even still, maybe healing the energies that are blocking us from feeling that, okay? So that's the first one, that's attachment. Now let's move on to judgment. Judgment we're going to define as opinions based off of preconceived notions or biases that we have formed. And I really want to emphasize this one thing, it's in opinions. This is something that I want to invite you to explore with me. In my own mindset, I have been working on mentally reframing what judgments are. I've always had this negative connotation around judgment, and I feel like that is out there in the world. When we look at judgment, there's that fear of judgment, right? It has this negative connotation around it. But if we look at judgment for a moment and just recognize that it is simply an opinion, it may be a little bit more energetically charged, but it is just an opinion. It doesn't have to hold the same weight, but we place the word judgment and the energetic charge it holds over the word opinion as it is denser and it carries more weight. I'll give you an example of what I mean. It's like, if you're not into sports, then someone talking about how the Cubs are going to win the Stanley Cup, and I totally know that the Stanley Cup is hockey, not baseball, but I just wanted to be a smartass. The Cubs are going to win the Stanley Cup, okay? And they're like convicted of that. But you're not into sports. It doesn't even faze you. Like, you don't even think twice about it. But if somebody says that you look stupid today, that is going to feel like more of a judgment, whereas the Cubs winning the Stanley Cup is going to be an opinion. But if we just look at it for a moment, at the surface, they are the same thing. They are simply someone's preconceived notion or bias, an opinion that they have. I just want to invite you to explore that, because judgment does not have to carry that heavy, dense weight that we can feel inside. Now, if you are at a space in your life where you have a fear of judgment and you're working on releasing that and converting, transmuting, and alchemizing that fear, do your thing. Maybe this mental reframing isn't for you right now. But I just want to invite you to begin to explore that idea. So then, how does judgment show up in our lives? In what forms can we start to see it so we can identify it? Judgment can take the form of mental barriers blocking us from accepting what is unfolding, blocking us from accepting things that we need to heal. It can block us from a level of compassion. That can take the form of compassion for others, and that can take the form of self-compassion. So what do I mean by this? What I mean is, let's say, for example, you have this story. When you were a kid, you were feeling some big emotions, and maybe one of your parents, maybe a teacher, a guardian, whoever it was, a sibling, someone of significance within your life was with you as you were feeling this big emotion. And instead of holding the space for you and maybe helping you process it or understand it, they were like, nah, you're a drama queen, right? Stop being a drama queen. You're being overreactive. It's not that big a deal, right? So now you have this big emotion. Let's call it sadness for argument's sake. And you have the judgment that you're a drama queen, that you're being overreactive, and it's not that big a deal. And what we're doing, because we're like 5, 6 years old, we're feeling this big emotion. As far as we know, it's a normal thing. But this person of significance in our life, whether it's a parent or a grandparent or a teacher, they're telling us that we're being overreactive. We're being a drama queen. And we're going to take their judgment, their opinion, and we're gonna slap that on the emotion, and that is now our new story. I'm the drama queen. I'm overreactive, right? So that's the new story that we have here. And as we get older, we continue to place that same judgment on ourselves over and over again. It was impressed upon us at a young age. And this isn't just to blame anybody. This is just to merely point out the fact within our own life. This is what happened, right? So with that being all said, we have the story. Drama queen, overreactive. Got it. We keep telling ourselves that story over and over again. Every time the big emotion comes up, we throw that mental barrier up of judgment, and we take the judgment from the person in our past, we embody it and start to say, drama queen, overreactive. So now it's 25 years later, you're 32, and is my math that up? It doesn't matter. You're 32, and you are now so embodied as the overreactive drama queen, or drama king if you want to call it that, but like I've been called a drama queen even though I'm a dude. You're the overreacted drama queen. You're so embodied, you're so identified with that you judge yourself when that big emotion is starting to occur. And that is stifling your spiritual growth, because underneath the judgment is the big emotion that needs to be felt, needs to be felt so that you can heal it. You can feel the depth of that shit. You can feel the depth of that big, deep, heavy emotion. Allow it to surface and start to hold space for it. And over time, you can begin to alchemize and transmute that energy, that raw energy, and point it, redirect it towards the things that you want, that align with you in your life. But until you can feel the depth of that big emotion, before you can even do that, you have to observe the judgment, hold space for the judgment, and notice the judgment. Because underneath of that is the big emotion that needs to be felt, but the judgment is blocking it, right? This can lead to a lot of separation. And like I said, it blocks our spiritual growth, because these opinions and judgments, whether they come from you, like maybe it's something that you learned and then you started judging yourself, or it was a story that somebody told you as a kid and you embodied it. Again, this isn't to blame anybody, but when we take on these stories as kids, it's like we're taking them on because the authority figures in our life, whether it's a teacher, parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, we take their word because we trust them, we love them. They give us that sense of love that every child, every human is craving. And they're our source of it, after all. You know, we're 5 years old. I can't go on Tinder yet. Okay, maybe that wasn't funny. It was kind of funny. Anyway, I'm distracting myself again. So these judgments can really create a massive separation within us from the human intellect to the emotional part of the body, or the emotional body, let's call it. And I don't really know if I need to share these examples, but I'm going to. The examples of judgment are really self-judgment or judgments of others, right? The judgments that we place upon other people within, you don't even have to verbalize it to them, within your own mind can be a beautiful reflection of the judgment that is stifling your spiritual growth. I'm gonna let that sit there for a minute and drink another swig of water. I say this because of the 24 takes I had filming this video. That was probably something I needed to hear. That's almost always how this shit works. Whenever I make one of these videos, it's exactly what I need to hear. Okay, the last one we're gonna talk about is resistance. Resistance we're gonna define, and you're gonna start, before I get into this, you may start to find as I say this, or even in the weeks or months to come, as you really utilize the information we're discussing here to identify these patterns within yourself, you may start to notice the cohesion between these three mental barriers that we will use psychologically to block our emotional and spiritual development. Because as I get into this last portion here, it may become even more clear. So the last one, resistance. We're gonna define resistance as a mental or emotional opposition, a psychological opposition to maybe something you're feeling or something that is happening, right? I'll give you the best example because it's raining today, and I actually heard my own mind saying this. When it rains and you don't like the weather, how often does your mind try to control the external circumstances by saying, I wish I was at this place. I wish I was in a tropical island. I wish it wasn't raining. I wish it was the middle of the summer. We do this every time the summer comes around, every time the winter comes around. When it's too hot in the summer, I want it to be winter. When it's too cold in the winter, I want it to be summer. Or if you're a fall and spring kind of person, the same thing's true. Like it's too hot in the spring or whatever. Or maybe you don't like fall, winter, but you're more focused on the spring. I'd rather it be spring because it's more pretty and beautiful, whatever it is. We are resisting the external circumstances with our mental or even emotional opposition. And my example with the judgment is also a good example of resistance, because a judgment is a form of resistance, right? So if you're feeling a big emotion, if you're feeling sadness, you're feeling depression, grief, something like that, right? So here's the grief, here's the depression, and then here comes your judgment. You shouldn't feel this way. Or maybe somebody else said it to you. And again, this is why I want to invite you to see judgment and opinions as the same thing. Someone says it to you because they might have good intentions. You shouldn't feel that way. It is blocking, it is opposition, it is resistance to, I don't know why I just did that, resistance to what is happening right now. So you're feeling this, you're like, no, you shouldn't feel that way. Judgment, it is resistance to what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. Continued resistance of what is unfolding, what we're feeling, what we're experiencing, what's happening, can lead to deeper levels of fear, deeper insecurities. It can lead to, as I said earlier, with my example with the weather, that was a really minor example, but manipulation, trying to egoically control outcomes. And this can take the shape and the form of you actually trying to manipulate us, anybody, manipulate people into getting what you want, and not from a mutually beneficial way. When I'm talking about egoically manipulating or controlling an outcome, what I'm talking about is we will be focused on what we can get. We see this in the world all the time with like politicians and stuff like that. They're probably the best example, actually, now that I'm saying this, of manipulation, marketing. Big corporations and their marketing, they're gonna sell you on what you think you want to hear because it puts money in their pocket, solely focused on them, but it actually harms your health. I see Gatorade commercials on all the time at the gym, and it's like Gatorade is way more harmful than they market it as for our health. And they are manipulating the facts so that they can get the outcome they want. Manipulation, right? If you continue to resist things that you're feeling, healing that needs to occur, it can lead to things like denial of your feelings, denial of your big emotions, levels of procrastination, and an unwillingness to heal, a suppression, a pushing down of those energies, of those emotions. These can take the form of fear of change, right? Like how many of you know you need to leave the job, leave the job, leave the person, leave that relationship, but you're too afraid of what will happen if you don't. This ties back to that attachment, right? Where I talked about you have an attachment to a relationship. So you can start to see now how these all work cohesively, and they're all more or less a part of the same thing. You start to identify one, it can start to pull the strings out from underneath the rest of them. So to come back to my point of resistance though, that fear of change, you know you need to leave the relationship, you know you need to leave the job, that toxic environment, whatever it is. You actually have the means to do it, but you just can't do it. What's blocking you? That fear of change. You're resisting what you're feeling in here. Maybe there's a fear of the unknown there, a fear of judgment. And instead of feeling the depth of that fear, we throw up a wall, put up our mental barriers. No, if I do this, I'll lose that thing. If I do this, I won't get that outcome. I don't know who I am without that job, right? All the chatter starts to occur. If resistance is left unchecked and we just continue to resist what we're feeling, what we're experiencing, this can lead to avoidant behaviors, right? I was talking about the unwillingness to feel the depth of those emotions. You can just continue to avoid, distract, right? We did a whole video on the 4 major mental mechanisms behind how we handle our feelings. One of those was escapism and distraction, right? So we grab the phone. We're feeling uncomfortable and awkward and when we're waiting for something in public and we hear a kid screaming or whatever it is, pick up your phone and distract yourself. Right? Maybe you're avoiding that type of conversation with your partner because it'll bring up old wounds. And when you both get home from work, you're not even talking. Or maybe you talk, but it's very small talk and you put on the television, you watch that. You put on something to distract you, right? This can lead to overthinking. Continuous resistance can lead to overthinking because what we're doing here is we are reverting back to the pattern of using the egoic mind, the human intellect. I don't say that in a bad way because the ego isn't inherently bad. We're using the human intellect to analyze the situation. Analysis is going to bring judgment. So we start to say, okay, this is what's happening with that person. You start bringing on the opinions and the judgments and all of these things, and you're just now analyzing. And then you're just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Like, this is happening and that's happening. Then you learn something new. It's like, oh God, hold on. That just changed everything. I don't know. I have no idea. What am I supposed to do? Have you ever been there? Because as I'm saying all this, I'm feeling myself going there. So resistance can lead to fears, insecurities, fear of change, it can start to allow those to surface. And if you want to get beyond resistance, allow those things to surface. So then what's the takeaway with all this? Like, what can I start to do to make a change? Because as I'm going through this information, I hear my own mind kicking in. It's like, okay, cool, I got the information. What do I do with it? And the first thing I want to invite you to do is you need to begin to embody 3 states of inner being. They're pretty much the opposite of what we're talking about. Non-attachment, non-judgment, and non-resistance. And if you want to hear me discuss any one of those or all 3 of those in another video, drop a comment down below and I can take a deeper dive into those things. But the 3 states of embodiment: non-resistance, non-judgment, non-attachment. But ultimately, it begins with a mindset shift, a choice. You have to first choose that you're not going to allow these mental barriers to continue to block and stifle your spiritual development. And you have to make that choice today or tomorrow. You can say it right now and your mind may kick in, like, but what happens when this happens? That is the beginning steps of this. Because as soon as you make the decision, the universe, God, source will start, whatever you want to call it, will start throwing all of your shit in your way. It'll start to put all of the blocks in front of you that you have. And now you have the opportunity to start to embody the non-resistance, the non-judgment, the non-attachment. By holding that space for those, maybe it starts with observing all of your judgments. You go to the store, and you can do this as an exercise. When you go grocery shopping again, notice how much you judge all the other people, what they're buying, what they're doing as they grocery shop. You hear the person on the phone who just is talking the whole time, or you see the person who just drops and breaks things. I don't know, but notice when you go to the grocery store, notice your judgment of other people. When you're at the gym, notice your judgment of other people. And your practice can begin there. But first, it begins with the choice. You can choose in this moment, right now, as we are here together, that you are going to begin to embody the inner states of non-resistance, non-judgment, non-attachment. And then from there, begin to cultivate the observer and observe your attachments, your clinging on to the past. Observe your judgments of yourself and other people. And notice all the resistance that shows up when you're feeling those big, heavy emotions or things aren't going your way mentally. I hope this video has helped you demolish the mental barriers blocking and stifling your own spiritual development and healing on this journey. If you all took anything from this video, I would appreciate it if you could leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you want to hear more about. Subscribe to the channel. You can click the notification bell if you want to see more, and I will check you all out in the next video.